Make no mistake, chums, this is a friendship hanging by a thread. Oh yes, it was never meant to really be like this, of course. Meghan Markle returning back to the spotlight with a brand new look, a brand new colour in fact, and of course a chance to relaunch herself onto the world stage once again. Now, you would say, in my opinion, that, whatever Meghan does, it's an utter disaster. And that's not me being unkind, but it really is. You kind of wonder how she got to this age and actually got that far. And more importantly, there's somebody missing in this whole mix-up of this particular story. You won't want to miss this. As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, as I say, lovely to welcome you back. Welcome one and all brand new subscribers. I'm going to just go off topic. I'll get told off, but I don't care because I want your opinion on this. The other day, somebody gave me, brace yourselves, gypsy tart, which is apparently a beautiful dish from the Kent area. Have you had it? Oh goodness, when when they just give you a small piece and you think, no, I want you to take the small piece, I'll have the rest of the pie. Absolutely delicious. Have you ever had it? Look it up. It's just gorgeous, and it just goes to show that the sort of smaller things, the way that people made things, so long ago, 100 plus, 200 plus years ago, far more nutritious in many respects, a lot more love and care and attention into detail. And when you look at the sort of slop, and I mean that kindly, that Meghan Markle is throwing up on Instagram on a daily basis, you do look and think, no, if you'd have gone down that route, you might have done very well. Here we go. You see, the problem, we haven't had a wave, have we? Nice to see you. Sorry, you can tell me off, but don't shout too loudly. We don't want the neighbours knowing, do we? No, sorry, William, Catherine. The thing is, you don't really want, do you, to sort of get yourself in this kind of pickle. And this is exactly, once again, that Meghan Markle has got herself in. Each and every time she steps out, it's a gaffe. And this is because the people behind her, and these are the people that are now remaining, the few staff members that are knocking around, they're not looking out for her. I mean, if you are a celebrity, you pay top dollar, but the people around you will say, this is the person you're going to meet, this is where we're going to go, you're staying at this place, blah, blah, blah. Meghan, the only thing she entrusted anybody to do was to film her really going out the hotel, because we all needed to see that. Markle, of course, was staying at such a prestigious hotel. We'll come back to that shortly. Here's where this is interesting, you see, because as you can now see, the designer, the creative director of this particular fashion brand, with its rather dubious background, to say the least, has suddenly let slip. You see, and this is the thing. If you don't nail your story down, and I keep pointing this out to people, and I've had many years of experience working with celebrities, publicity campaigns, you name it, I've done it all. And if they don't stay with the story, then, truly, that it's a failure. I remember literally dealing with a singer at the time who had an audition to be in the movie Phantom of the Opera. She had a single out at the time. We're at MTV, and I tipped off the presenter, this is happening. She said live on air, I don't know anything about it. I think it's something that might happen or might not. Killed the story dead. She needed to say, it's very exciting, it's at the early stages, couldn't quite believe it, that I got offered an audition, one of my all-time favourite musicals. Consequently, we parted very quickly after that. Useless. And this is really the problem that I would say happening with Meghan. She can't nail down these people where she wants to spin her own narrative and her own sort of story. And so the creative director has basically said, well, we were texting back and forth and they didn't really know each other. No. This is, again, this is just such a, Meghan's had an idea, or the team have had an idea. Paris Fashion Week, why don't you go there, near Europe, dangle the kids, pretend that you might come back to the royal family, and then, of course, step back once again, garnering all the press, walking all over the hard work behind the people of that fashion house. Remember all the models, the designers, the makeup teams. Everything was wiped away because this woman decided at the 11th hour that she was going to go. Now, of course, he would welcome her in. He knew exactly what he was getting, free worldwide publicity. And as the brand new creative director, you couldn't get bigger free publicity, right? Everybody's talking about the brand, whether you like the brand or not. The average Joe, like you and I would be wearing it clearly, but the average lady would not be buying it because it's just too expensive. But, there is somebody in the world that would go, what? Not bad. But here's where the story gets really more developed, because you see, as I said, he claims they were texting back and forth, right? Now, there's two elements here that people don't, have not certainly picked up on. I can tell you from an excellent source, the original idea came from her good chum, Marcus Anderson. Again, I have to say allegedly, right, Mr. Anderson? But the thing is, he really instigated the idea of, Meghan now moving back out into a totally different sort of arena. And the biggest story really behind that, and this is where this is interesting. You see, Marcus has never left Meghan's side. He's like super glue. Can't shake him off, He knows that whenever she's mentioned, he's mentioned, vice versa. Good for his brand, good for his image. They did have that moment though, where I can tell you for 100% fact, where he was furious at where she was laughing at the catwalk, blah, blah, blah. He knew the cameras were on her. That's how dim she is. Whatever happened, you just wouldn't laugh at somebody because you just don't know if they've broken an ankle or something. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. And I've seen that happen in many fashion shows with the sky high heels. Do you know what I'm saying, ladies? Very tricky. And those catwalks can be very slippery and shiny. People don't realize that either. Marcus apparently was furious behind the scenes. Where this gets really interesting and more developed in itself is not everybody's been really truthful, right? Simply because when you look at the figures, and particularly when you look at the hotel stay and the limousine hires receipts, what's interesting is where they are built. And because of privacy, I'm not allowed to say where they are built, but somebody paid for Lamarckle, right? You get it? So they're not being honest. And here's the story where it's really muddy, simply because, of course, Meghan certainly wouldn't open her purse. She might open Harry's purse, but she's certainly not going to open her purse to go halfway around the world for free, for nothing, just for a bit of publicity. It had to be something in it for her. And, the original outfit, which she's wearing, wasn't actually designed for her. It was designed for another A-lister. Again, I'm not allowed to say which one, but I know, don't I, Meghan, who that was designed for? But she was happy to accept it. Free frock, why not, Now, again, where this is really interesting is her agency, which is supposedly the agency that are going to build her up and make her a huge star and all that sort of stuff, William Morris and Diva, had zero input into this. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that if you have this artist, and we call them artists, but if you have a person signed to your agency, surely you would want to capitalize on that. You might put something out on your website, our client, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, attending XYZ, or even after the event, you might want to raise that flag. Zero, dead, not interested, moved on, whatever you want to call it, right, chums? So again, this is interesting in itself, because with everything Meghan does, and this is what I said at the very beginning of the show, it's never clear cut. What is clear cut is this, that the two elements that really Meghan wanted to do was a sort of big two fingers back at the monarchy, basically saying, I'm coming to Europe and I can come to Europe, but also stupidly pointing out that she can travel halfway around the world. Meanwhile, her husband's still tapping on the door of the British Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, basically saying, give me back my full PPI or whatever it is, because he wants all of this full sort of security, and the British government don't want to pay for it. The British taxpayer are certainly not going to be paying for it, whatever Harry does to beg, steal or borrow for this attention. As for Meghan, she's made it now incredibly worse. And as I told you last week, first and exclusive here on our show, the idea originally was that, they were quite keen on the idea of maybe Meghan being an informal ambassador. And this was a sort of flag waved around, quite well, that, oh, maybe, we could do something with this. She's clearly quite keen. Reference that as desperate. And then, you can sort of say, well, what could we do with her? Apparently, a lot of senior people inside the brand, very appalled, you have to remember, of where they are. They know exactly what Paris meant to the late, beautiful Princess Diana and her many dedicated fans and followers around the world. And people who just simply admired and respected the princess for her charitable work. Parking aside the rather convoluted and difficult private life, that's what they felt about that. It was tacky, sort of a stunt, didn't need it to be done. But of course, Meghan pushed ahead with that. So again, she's damaged a good potential opportunity. She does this every single time. It's on a plate almost. It's almost like we're ready to offer you what you want, as did the royal family when, you know, she did those few engagements for them. She had worldwide fame. She had people knocking at the door that she could have only dreamed of. And at the 11th hour, just kicks it all back by doing something so stupid. It's almost as if she wants to ruin the whole thing that she's got. Again, here's where this gets interesting because, as I say, there were substantial bills, air flights, hotel stays at the Plaza Athénée, which of course are very easy to track down if you know the right people on who paid what bill, right? So consequently, as I said, Meghan Markle did not shell out for her own stay. Somebody in this particular statement is not being honest about exactly how this came around. And I would surmise that the reason why they're saying this is because they know that this now looks bad. The kickback against the brand, the kickback, of course, against what she did with the ride in the back of the cab with the feet on the stuff, etc. But this particular company, shall we say, paid for everything. So while it's all gone wrong, to put it politely, behind the scenes now, Meghan is just, you know, she's had to move back in to the world of charity, zipping over to New York. She now wants you to forget that Paris endeavour because, you know, she just doesn't mind the pictures. She's apparently thrilled with the pictures of her coming out of the hotel and in the designer gowns, and she thought that this was going to open big doors for other designers. The phone chums has remained very silent. But if you look at this original statement from the creative director, not everybody's been truthful, right? Neil Sean, Kensington, London.